Hello everyone. Today we have gathered here for a very healthy discussion on a very interesting topic, Fintech 101. I, Chandrika Lamba from Lawyers, has joined. I'll be introducing all the panelists today. We welcome you to the first edition of F2 #F2F Lawyers, which is face-to-face lawyers. This platform will bring practicing legal professionals and in-house legal counsels from varied backgrounds and experiences to interact among themselves on trending legal topics. Without wasting much of time, I would like to introduce all the panelists and the moderator for today's event. Ms. Soumee Bhatt, prime panelist. Ms. Soumee Bhatt, an alumni of Symbiosis Law School, Pune, is currently working as the General Counsel at BankBazaar, where she is responsible for heading and overseeing the legal and compliances function, and also advising the management on public policies, corporate governance, government affairs, and regulatory matters. She has an experience of over 12 years in the banking and fintech sector and has helped organizations and businesses mitigate legal and regulatory risk by offering proactive and solution-oriented strategic legal advice on the subject matter. In her last stint, she played a game-changing role in the growth and transformational journey of the organization. Soumee is not an armchair lawyer, as she strives to work alongside teams and the management as a business enabler. Outside of her professional commitment, she is passionate about mentoring recent law graduates and young lawyers on their career choices, specifically in the area of in-house counsels in corporate India. We welcome you, Ms. Soumee, ma'am. Next panelist we have is Mr. Sanjiv Dagar. Sanjiv Dagar is an alumni of Delhi University, has been a general counsel for almost 15 years before coming to practice in 2013. There is a corporate and a business lawyer and has tremendous experience in litigation, advisory, contract management. He is currently the managing counsel at LegaJoist, a law firm which specializes in banking, finance, technology, e-commerce sectors, amongst many others. His role mainly includes managing the corporate advisory, consultation, and litigation verticals of the firm. Under his leadership, the firm has demonstrated proficiency in clients' legal functions, compliances, taxation, money laundering laws, mergers and acquisition, IBC, and IPR. LegaJoist has a strong presence in amongst all the commercial cities in India, in Delhi, New Delhi, Gurgaon, Mumbai, and is expanding its network overseas. We welcome you, Sanjiv, sir.
Thank you.
The third panelist we have is Mr. Antariksh Aggarwal. Mr. Antariksh Aggarwal is an alumni of Delhi University, started his practice as a chartered accountant in 2016 and later started his own firm, Antariksh Aggarwal Law Office in 2019. His expertise lies in budgeting, financial analysis, stock valuation, pricing, GST, indirect tax, and financial accounting. His practice mainly focuses on money laundering, foreign exchange management laws, arbitration laws, income tax, and corporate laws. We welcome you, Antariksh, sir.
Thank you.
The fourth person in today's event is Mr. Himanshu Gupta. He will be the moderator of today's event. Mr. Himanshu is an alumni of Punjab Engineering College, IIM Calcutta. He has over 21 years of experience in various capacities as a software engineer and a product developer. Out of these, he has spent the last 13 years exclusively in the legal tech domain. His expertise lies in innovation, product development, and commercial execution while keeping the customer's needs paramount. He is currently the CEO and co-founder of Lawyers. We welcome you, Himanshu, sir. And now I would request Himanshu, sir, to take over the screen and begin with the today's event.
Thank you so much, Chandrika. Well, I'm the only one who is not from the legal background, so please excuse me if there is any non-legal stuff that comes from me. Thank you so much, Soumee, Antariksh, and Sanjiv for taking out time from your busy schedule. Well, that's the power of technology. We've been talking about. Sanjiv had a hearing in court, and who would have imagined in the non-COVID days that he would have done his hearing, and in next 10 minutes he will be at his office for a seminar or a session. So all these things are, I mean, the positive takeaways from the situation that we are in, and we have to adjust with it. Okay, so the topic for today is fintech one-on-one. I mean, fintech is a slang being used for financial technology, and is used to identify emerging technology that aims to enhance and simplify the distribution and use of financial services. Surprisingly, fintech, I mean, India is one of the second largest fintech hub in the world, trailing behind the US. So that's a very commendable number to state. And with almost 2,000 startups operating in this region, India is a fertile ground for fintech revolution. So while all these numbers are good and really helpful, showcasing how fintech is developing in the country, but there are certain things that we would want to debate upon. So maybe I can just start off with the topic, the journey of fintech. I mean, how has the journey has been of fintech from its inception to fame? I mean, we have been hearing about fintech mostly in the last 5 to 6 years, but it exists prior to that also. So maybe if I would like to put on this question to Soumee, what led to the boom of fintech industry in India? I mean, based upon your view.
Thank you, Himanshu, and thanks for having this session with us today. So, to just get back to your question, so what led to the boom of fintech industry in India? As you said, today India is increasingly appreciated as a leading global innovation hub for fintech. Now, there is great interest from investors and global enterprises, not just to invest, but also to collaborate and create with Indian fintech innovators. Banks and financial institutions have always been at the forefront of technology usage for their business purposes. That we know. So this was partly driven by the need to cut costs, improve efficiency, as well as the desire to provide better customer service. Now, fintech in our country has evolved through ages. It hasn't happened like overnight. So I would say the inception was when banks started introducing computers, and there was computerization of the entire back office management and the core banking systems like the record keeping, ledger keeping, and all. So this happened in the 1970s, in the 1980s, and this move was basically in order to improve efficiencies and cut costs. The second wave saw with the advent of ATMs, and then telephone banking and internet banking. In 1998, as we know, ICICI Bank was the first bank to launch internet banking in India.
Yeah.
So, and then came the age of smartphones, and then banks came up with apps, and we had mobile banking. So the driving factors changed. It became from internal, purpose of cutting cost and all. It became more external facing, that is to serve and provide better customer service and all. And the third and the most recent boom, as we all know, is the boom of the digital payments, the digital lending, and the wealth tech, and now even insurtech in our country. So in the common jargon, fintech is now, we come to understand fintech as, the technology used by financial service providers who, have disruptive means to provide services like, the Paytm, PhonePe, Razorpay of the world. So with the last 6 years, I think Indian fintech market has been growing tremendously. And I would say demonetization and the government's push for the digital economy has given a great boost to the development of digital payments in India. And as you said, India is just ranking the second in the adoption of fintech, and is at par with China. Yeah, and from the consumer side, you will see that customers have had great experiences in non-financial services like cab bookings, hotel bookings, and they came to expect the same standards from fintech service providers. And all these factors together, I think, has led to the boom of the sector in the country.
Very, very well put. I think you've clearly mentioned how the journey has been from right from computerization to the advent of apps on smartphones, completely changing the way the finance or money is being handled in the country. But I'm sure while there has been so much of transformation, how smooth was the transition from traditional financial services to financial technology per se? If I may ask this question to Sanjiv.
Yeah, so thanks, Himanshu. Himanshu, let me put it this way. There are two components to any business. One is the asset side, another is a liability side. Any bank or a finance company would like to focus on asset side.
Hmm.
Whatever they can lend, and they can in a way give money to the borrowers. So the book size will be determined by that component. So they have to focus on lending. At the same time, they have to match their balance sheet. So for that purpose, they have to borrow money also. So one is a financing to borrowers, another is their own financing, so refinancing.
Yeah.
Okay, now since there are two parallel sides, they have to move on. Now, how will they move? Again, there are two things. One is a technology side, and second important is a legal backing.
Hmm.
So when we have proper laws to support the business, then I think technology will also come forward. The ideas will also come forward. Innovation will also take place. So there are so many things. So in my understanding, what I have seen is there have been certain laws, a significant law was that of a securitization law, wherein the powers were given to the banks to recover
Hmm.
money, take
Hmm.
possession and then dispose of through auction sale. That is one part. Before that, what used to happen? Every bank and every company would go to civil court. And civil code, you know it very well, it takes ages together. So recovery will hamper. Now I'm coming back to my basic point that the asset side is impacted badly when the money is not recovered. And
Okay.
when money is not coming forward, then how will they utilize that money which was scheduled to come? So meaning thereby bank will focus more on the liability side, and in a way there will be a major loss. So the technology has helped banks to recover money faster. At the same time, technology has been recognized by the law also. When Information Technology Act came, then that act supported
Hmm.
digitalization in a massive way. And this is the most important law, to my understanding, that it was based on the one of the few laws which was based on global legal system. So
Okay.
so many principles from global law were borrowed at the time when the Information Technology Act was for framed. And so this is one part. In 2016, very recently, in
Hmm.
India, we have seen a massive change through the Act of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So IBC has also come. Now, what happens? The legal system in our country is saying to the techies that you bring technology, whatever you can bring, and we will support. So this is really a very good ecosystem in the country, wherein it is a very good match of two things. One is technology and another is a legal system.
So yeah, that's very well put, Sanjeev. So I think you clearly mentioned there are certain laws that have been changed to benefit the transformation from traditional financial services to the growth of fintech. But I'm sure there would be certain laws that still need to be amended. I mean, I would pose this question to maybe Antariksh, and then you can, Soumee and Sanjeev can also put in. So Antariksh, do you feel that there are certain laws that still need some amendments and are hampering the growth of fintech sector?
Yes, firstly, thanks to Chandrika for the kind words of introduction, and thanks to you, Himanshu ji, for this discussion, because this is the need of the hour today. And like you put the question very aptly, as of today, in my opinion, I don't see that fintech has actually reached even the basic level, what the according to its capacity, I would say, because like uh, uh, every other law, if there is a check on any wrongdoing, then only that particular activity can be promoted in the society. So let's say for check bouncing, when the law of 138, section 138 was rendered and a criminal, it was made a criminal act, then only people started taking checks more seriously. People started
Hmm.
doing business via checks more seriously and taking dishonor of checks more seriously. Before that, it was nothing. Businesses were still happening, but not at that level, when I would say. So similarly, if we talk today, if there is no stricter cyber crime law which has been
Okay.
imposed by the parliament, I don't see fintech as such to create an impact on the society, because today also, if I talk about a layman, he is still very much doubtful about performing a tech-based transaction or doing an online transaction. Although let's say like 50% people have changed themselves, adapted themselves, but it is still very slow, I would say. So until and unless there are checks legally which come in and
Hmm.
make you liable for any wrongdoing in a very, very serious way, I don't think that people would, find any vouching taken by the government on their behalf that, okay, we are serious about fintech, we are serious about online transactions, and if somebody does any wrong on you, then we
Hmm.
are there to protect your rights. So although there is cyber law, there is an act which has been enacted long before, but today the capacity and the opportunity which we see in fintech companies, there is not a complementary law which is backing it.
Okay.
Today, when Geo companies like Reliance Geo at their AGM, they are showing the capacity of artificial intelligence to the world, that this is the new norm. This is going to be the future. People will be talking through artificial intelligence. They will be using AI as a model in the coming future. Then I think laws regarding that are still naive, in my opinion, and doesn't hold anybody accountable that easily. So definitely, I would say that legally we are not that strong as of today. But I am pretty confident that in the coming future, everything will change very drastically, and people will get adapted to this very quickly. And those who don't get adapted will be forced to, enter into this arena and take the step forward in order to promote this, because there is no other way out as of today.
Yeah. So, so what you're saying is that there are lot many changes still
Yes.
uh, that are needed at the need of the hour. So, Soumee and Sanjiv, do you agree to his viewpoints?
So,
I would agree partially with what Antariksh said. And because I feel, see, the backbone or the basic framework of the legislation and the regulations are present in the country. So we have the Payment and Settlements Act, which was enacted about now more than a decade ago, I think. Then we have RBI, Reserve Bank of India regulations on prepaid instruments. And then we have P2P lending guidelines. And, of course, Sanjeev mentioned about the IT Act. And however, yes, I do agree with him to a certain extent, because there is still gray areas. There are gray areas in the legal and the regulatory world about certain things like for example, e-signatures, are they valid or not? So
Yeah.
although electronic records and electronic signatures are recognized in the IT Act, but they don't have evidentiary value, in the sense the Evidence Act hasn't been amended, to kind of give that uh, importance, to electronic signatures. Although digital signatures have been recognized by the IT Act, but then doing a digital signature is really tedious, and we know that. And it would have been very, easy if Aadhaar-based e-sign was also given, like a legal recognition from an evidentiary point of view. So yes, I agree that still there is traction, but there is a long way to go ahead. But then I would say that the basic framework is definitely existing in our country.
yeah, right. So I'm really happy that panelists are, bang on to the point, and they have made a very nice observation about the amendments and the thought and the change process, particularly in the minds of the people. So it is not about the enactment of the law. The law should go to the root and to the common man. Then
Yeah.
only implementation will take place. But
Yes.
there are certain things to it. One, that changes have happened very fast. And in the recent years, I have seen that government is very much keen to bring out changes. The one aspect which I can think of where lots of changes are required is about data protection. And government, number one, and Supreme Court, both are doing their best to protect the data of an individual. What happens? Like Antariksh was saying something about the criminalization of offenses, this and that. So check bounce has happened, this has happened, that has happened. Yes, to a larger extent, it is true that the people did not care for it, but now people care for check bouncing. People care for imprisonment. And this is the government which is not leaving anybody. Okay, so any offense is done and it has to go to its logical conclusion. It is not like in the older days what used to happen. You put your file and you keep it in your arms and go to the department and tell them that page number 15 explains everything, and everyone knows what page number 15 means here. So that time has gone now. You are sitting in your office, making transactions, making e-filing, filing, etc., regulatory reporting, everything is being done. But what happens? That security of data is the major concern. And what I understand largely that it is not only in India, it is happening worldwide. So this is the important aspect wherein the technology people and the legal fraternity will have to work very hard. Number one, to convince the government, and number two, to convince the Supreme Court.
Okay.
In Aadhaar, we have seen that Aadhaar case went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court said something else. In recently, during this COVID, the one particular health app was also challenged in Supreme Court. So there were coming, various opinions and aspects. So these are some of the things. But now the challenge with fintech, as far as technology and law is concerned, the challenge is about the security.
Data
What I
security.
have experienced in the legal litigation, that people share their personal information and that personal information is not protected. So it means that there is onus on the fintech companies also to protect the information and to give confidence to the person who is sharing the information.
So that's very, very true, Sanjeev. I think bang on. I kind of quite resonate to your thoughts that data privacy has been the biggest challenge with regards to the growth and acceptance of fintech. Because many times as a user, if I was asked to download a particular credit card app, and I was really hesitant because though that startup was sounding very promising, but I was not secure if their data security practices are they are following data security practices. And I was very correct in that, because months down the later I realized that that particular company was not following the data security policies, and nothing has happened to that company. So it brings a fear amongst the user that if my data as a user is not protected, so a fintech company, a startup, which may be solving a very important pain point, may not be convincing enough. So the laws have to be so stringent that the way you mentioned that the check bounce, everybody is not scared to see that the check might not bounce. The similar way, the startups, the companies should be really held responsible and accountable for any data theft that ever occurs from their company. So that should happen globally. So that brings me back to another question. We've been talking about the technology and how the change has happened from traditional financial services to the current fintech place. So what is the biggest pain point that fintech has solved for its customers? So if we look at from the consumer perspective or a customer perspective, uh, what is the biggest pain point, Soumee, do you feel that it has solved for
So
customers?
yeah, so I think that would be the point of giving an ease and convenience to the consumers. I think that's the biggest pain point that the fintech has solved for the customer. So let's take the example of doing a simple money transfer. So in earlier times, you had to, physically visit a bank branch, wait in a queue, take a token, and then talk to a customer service executive, deposit a check, and so on and so forth. And even the clearing would have taken time, maybe 3-4 days time. But now it can be done at sitting at the comfort of your home with internet banking, mobile banking, and now even IMPS, UPI, Bheem, Paytm, etc. So this hassle of physical visits and then heavy documentation and all has been successfully, I think, addressed by fintech. Also, if you take the example of like I mentioned, your cab bookings and all. So if you have to earlier we had to use cash to pay the cabs and all, and now you can easily pay through your Paytms and even through your internet banking, and you can even now get credit and pay later. So I think that convenience for consumers is something that factor fintech has really addressed.
Fantastic. So that's bang on. So the digital payments you're mentioning is the biggest pain point that fintech has solved. Antariksh, from your perspective, do you think there is any other pain point that fintech is solving for customers other than digital payment?
One, I agree with Soumee ma'am. I think she is absolutely right in saying this, because in the last 4 months, this fintech as a sort has really helped and come as a blessing to people, because when in the current COVID situation, people were not able to meet or even touch a currency. So I think in the last 4 months, people have started taking fintech as a more serious option, rather than when it was actually taken up by the government as a drive, digitalization of things. So at that time also, people started taking up Paytm and other online apps for payments. But in the last 3-4 months, I would say, when there was no other option available as such, because nobody could go out, and still transactions were happening, and people were still conducting their business as much as they could, sitting at home. So in the last 3-4 months, I would say that the real potential of fintech companies have come forward. And apart from solving one facility of being convenient, I think the other facility which it has given is of, I think, reaching as far as you can. About you can connect, or you can sort of do a transaction without any bounds today. Apart from just convenience, you can be assured about your online transaction. I can meet a client who's sitting in Pune, and I can give them a legal advice, and I can be assured that the payment would be coming to me in Delhi without any hassles, and I don't need to get bothered about anything regarding that. Or even the papers, if I need something, that is coming online. All the legal work is coming online. The transaction is happening online, and the work is getting done as well. So I think one is convenience, like ma'am suggested, and the other one would be, I think, it has increased the reach. It has extended our reach limitlessly. Yeah.
Yeah. So riding on the expansion of, I think, mobile and mobile technology pan India, I think that's the wave that fintech is riding. I mean, ever since the expansion of or the reach of these mobile towers in tier 2, tier 3 cities, people have, I mean, the banks and all these mobile apps, through these mobile apps, the expansion of fintech has really expanded. So, I mean, again, Antariksh, so with so many fintech offerings present today, so how can you get noticed and be differentiated? So, any thoughts on that? I mean, if you have to, there are so many fintech startups working on either on the same area or working on solving some other pain. So, with so many offerings, how can you get noticed and be differentiated?
According to me, in my opinion, I would say that companies which would be as software friendly or as much hardware friendly, something which works in all the hardwares or is as much safe in terms of safety norms, which provides the maximum safety, which addresses the most safety issues of a person, I think that company would be doing better eventually. And ultimately, it would come down to a competition level where it would boil down to the fact that who is charging more money. Let's say if a bank transfer is made from your mobile, from the fintech company to your personal bank account, then there is a charging transfer fee which they charge. And I think that would be on a more competitive level, that who is charging more and the time taken by the company. So there should not be any lag time between a transaction. There should not be any, any sort of inconvenience to the customer. So like you mentioned, there are a lot of companies which have come into this, but it would ultimately depend which is more visible to a customer. Like as a user, everybody should be knowing the name. It should be as familiar to everybody like any other brand. That okay, I know that this is into the market and they are doing pretty well. And these like today, I would say one of the examples would be Paytm. They're offering payment of bills also. You can pay your bills also. You can get your mobile recharge and stuff like that. So I would say a company like that where their interface is easier to use, number one. Number two, they are providing safety norms within their app and personally trying to satisfy a customer's needs that, okay, you are safely using this app and this is how it will function. And I think number three would be just getting used to as many interfaces like iOS or Android phone or any other type of phone. So I think that company would end up doing better.
Okay, so the usability and reach is something that you mentioned can make you stand out when you're offering a fintech solution. So we've been talking about the potential of fintech in India. I mean, there is no end to this debate. I mean, to this discussion. Certainly, fintech has a lot to offer. So I'm sure there are certain challenges also surrounded to its adoption, scalability, regulatory, and policy as well. So, I mean, which existing policies pose a challenge and an opportunity for fintech firms? If I may ask Soumee ma'am, if you can just highlight a little bit about existing policies which are a threat or which are a challenge and an opportunity for fintech firms on both the sides.
Right. So I would say I'll talk about not only policies but some of the factors which might cause a hindrance, and then I'll go to the opportunity part. So I think in India, although we've kind of we now have a huge base of people using smartphones, we have people using internet connections, but in rural areas, if you see, the internet connectivity is very slow, right? So these are some of the factors which are kind of coming as a threat to operate for the fintech companies to operate. Then as we were talking about issues of fraud control, risk management and money laundering. So it's also important, for fintech companies to kind of demonstrate, as we said, to regulators as well as to consumers that the data that the customer's data is dealt with absolute safeguard and with the good standards, and they should be able to demonstrate that the fintech companies can protect the customer's data. So data privacy is another concern. IT Act already kind of addresses that to a certain extent because we have IT sensitive data protection rules and all. But in India, the data protection bill, I think last year it was the bill was there in the parliament, but due to COVID, it has got delayed. So that has not yet passed. But maybe with the coming of the Data Privacy Act, legislation, this problem might get solved to a large extent. Now, another issue which I see is customer onboarding for fintech companies. It's a big pain point. So I think when Aadhaar was introduced, and the fintech companies really rejoiced because all that you needed to onboard a customer was a phone number, a mobile connection, and a name. But then the Aadhaar judgment came, and wherein they read down the code, the Honorable Court read down Section 57 of the Aadhaar Act, and private companies were not allowed to use Aadhaar as a means to authenticate the identity of customers. So that was, some blow to the sector, I would say. And after that, fintech companies kind of had to stop using eKYC and using biometrics of the customer to do the KYC and the due diligence on the customers. So I would say RBI recently has come up with eKYC guidelines, and that has kind of eased the pain to a large extent. And you can do, BKYC. They have also introduced digital KYC. They have introduced DigiLocker. So things like this, I would see these as opportunities. But yes, even now, customer onboarding is something which is tedious. It takes time, and it's also costly. So I think that's a pain factor for the industry. I think another one would be, this ever going competition with the banks and the integration with banks. That is another pain point for the fintech companies. But I think now it's more of a collaboration, right, rather than competition.
Okay. So that's you kind of put all the elements rightly. Sanjeev, if I may ask you that, while there's so many factors which are posing challenge to the growth of fintech sector, but what are the things that regulators, supervisors, or legislators do, in your opinion, to facilitate the growth of the fintech sector in India?
See, Himanshu, there are two things to any growth of a business. First and foremost thing is about the growth. So every business is interested in the growth. Okay, same applies in the fintech and the finance sector. So the fintech, is accepted by people because of two reasons. One is speed, another is need. So everybody is in need of money or need of something which can be financed. But if the need is not fulfilled because of the speed, and endlessly banks are taking time, so then the fintech has created its own space. You move an application online and money would be transferred to your account. So many things are there connected to the speed aspects. Now, relating to regulators and all, the most important work which regulators have to do is to ensure that money which has been paid to the borrowers is recovered. This is one aspect. And second aspect is the banks which are custodian of information of the individuals are not cheating those customers on one or the other pretext. In case there is a fraud, then the regulator should come up, the fintech or the banks should come up with a policy that you inform us within this much of time or whatever, and then we will protect that transaction. But the problem is that the banks have already made this kind of policies, but those policies are not implemented. And once a fraud is happening, then what the customer does, informs the bank would say, we have not to do anything, go to police. And that is the problem. So bottom line is that regulators have to regulate fintechs in such a manner that fintechs win the confidence of the borrowers. That is the bottom line.
Antariksh, do you agree with what Sanjeev has mentioned?
I mean, I was just listening to him and just thinking about an instance that he mentioned. I partially agree with him on the point that, number one, that banks need to assure and give on policies to the customers that, okay, if something wrong happens, then we are there for you since you are a client. And as such, there is no legality attached to it right now. But to impromptu, instantly promote fintech today, I think fintech companies in tie-up with banks, they can come up with policies and they can say that, okay, if anything wrong is done with you, then we are there to put on our level of checks as much as possible. But having said that, even today, if you might have heard of an incident which happened in Uttar Pradesh, I think there is a series also made on it by the name of Jamtara. So until and unless there is a change in the core values of our people as of an average person, that okay, this is another way of giving out money, because now what is fintech? They're basically dealing with money, and money is something to be dealt with very seriously. So although how convenient it may sound and fast it may sound, that okay, you can transfer money within 5 minutes, it is ultimately money you're talking about. So that accountability has to be attached to it somewhere, because if somebody is doing some wrong to someone, then how will we catch hold of him? Even like
don't you think so, Antariksh? I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but if so, the world is changing very fast, right?
yes.
So I mean, you rightly put that example when Sanjiv was mentioned. I also recall that Jamtara series, which is
Yes.
based on true events. So they kind of misused the evolution in the evolution in fintech recently in India, where they were cheating people by taking their what you call it as OTPs, right? So now we can't change the mindset of human beings. I mean, people, whether they are India or whether they are US or they are. I mean, these kinds of financial frauds happen everywhere because these guys, hackers, they find out a leeway between the implementation and then do their tricks. So I feel that while there will be certain challenges where minds we can't change the mindset of people, but the as Sanjeev mentioned, the regulators, supervisors, and legislators have to be working very fast on watching these loopholes and nipping them on time. So that's what my point is. I mean, with that question, I would like to ask Soumee. I know she's rearing to go. Based on an experience with BankBazaar, I'm sure you would put in some more light in terms of how these challenges. I mean, there must have been some many instances, Soumee. So you want to highlight few of these?
Yeah, so Himanshu, I mean, I just want to add to what Sanjeev said. See, the legislature and, when they frame laws and regulations, it should be in tune with the innovation. And they should also take opinion from technology experts, to my mind, before framing laws. So more often you will see, there will be cyber hackers and all. So the point I'm trying to make, is regulator, when they frame the regulations, they should be not reactive. That okay, some fraud has happened, and now how, how does a fintech has to build the processes, and how do we ensure cyber security? But the regulators should also think, and proactively, and try and see that what are the loopholes that can arise, and that is how laws and regulations should also be made. I mean, in my personal opinion. And another thing, which I can think of is regulations, when they are made, they should be tested. They should be tested in a sandbox environment, and so as to see that how the interplay of regulations is happening, how it is getting applied. It should be tested outside the commercial market, outside the main servers and systems, and regulations should not be stifling. It should be conducive to the innovation, but at the same time, I agree, concerns of cyber security, fraud, and all must be addressed with great seriousness.
That's a very valid point. On a lighter note, Sanjeev, would you recommend that the legislators should hire a hacker in their team to actually validate validate all the loopholes?
The answer lies in the word willingness. Okay, if there is a willingness to do something, then it is the combined or the consolidated responsibility of all stakeholders. May it be regulator, may it be banks or the customers. So the intention of everybody has to be in consonance with the main objective. Second important point is action. That everybody whosoever is responsible for anything and he notices something wrong, then the action should be taken. And action can be taken only when there is a proper infrastructure. So
Yes.
what we need to do is, in the country itself, we have to create infrastructure like what we do in our office. We employ IT people, we have HR team, we have so many other functions. So in the same manner, the government should also have the infrastructure. A holistic approach has to be taken. And coming back to your point, there is no problem in hiring hackers also to give it a kind of test to run.
But just to add to this, Sanjeev, in US, and I mean, what I've heard from my friends there who are part of who know legislators there also, so they do hire them. So they have hackers, ethical hackers, as they call it, to test out all the technology innovation that happens, to see what are the loopholes and how can it be plugged and deploy or create legislation around it. So why I agree with your point, Sanjeev, with regards to infrastructure. Of course, infrastructure has to evolve. I mean, if Paytm would have come maybe 20 years ago, nobody would have appreciated it, because there was not at all penetration of smartphones anyway. So as the infrastructure goes, the technocrats or the technology guys, tech buffs, also innovate basis how do we use this technology to ease the pain of people, right? So maybe this takes me to another question, which is really trending or hard hitting now. I would like to ask this question to Antariksh. Maybe we can then take it up with Soumee and Sanjeev too. So with regards to COVID-19 situation, it has affected the fintech domain for sure. So how do you think it has, impacted? I mean, what are the ways in which it has actually impacted the fintech industry?
I would say that it has largely impacted the fintech industry during these 3 months only. In my opinion, this is when the fintech industry has started actually coming into a serious play, I would say. Otherwise, it was there last year as well. Everybody started using it. But in the last 3 months, when it was forced due to the circumstances that, okay, you cannot be in contact with anybody, you cannot touch currency, or you cannot, we have to maintain a distance. So it has hugely impacted the fintech companies in the last 3-4 months only, I would say. Because if you would look back and see the timing of Jio as well, they have recently introduced all the changes during this time only. They have come up with the Jio products and internet 5G, 4G, because today when internet would be there in everybody's pocket in the form of a phone, then fintech is right there in that phone. Everybody is willing and are well acquainted from past few years that, okay, there are companies through which you can do digital payments. Digital payments is the next new norm. It is going to be a next new norm, but now due to the situation, why not use it today itself? Okay, everybody had heard the phenomena. Everybody knew what it have, how it is, used. But still, the more convenient sort of a way of life was to go to do things physically, because there was an option to do so. But once COVID came into play, and situation was of a complete lockdown, I would say. So people still had internet. People still had fintech companies as a blessing at that time to save them, to fulfill their basic needs. So even a small scale shopkeeper in a mohalla, small mohalla, he was using Paytm, because he knew that even he could not take any physical cash to help the customers and to provide day-to-day facilities to a household. So that is when fintech has started coming into a very big picture now. Although everybody knew about it, but still that was not used as the primary I would say mode of transaction. But yes, COVID has really come in as a I would say the blessing for fintech companies. Now is the time for them to actually grow from here
Okay.
on.
So you're saying that COVID has positively
Yes.
impacted the fintech sector.
Yes.
It is
I
other way
would
around. It is other way around. Since
I
the
would like to
fintech
know
was
that.
already in existence, so people were saved because of the existence of the fintech and digital payments.
Bilkul, people. I think I agree with Sanjeev sir. He has actually put it in a very brief manner what I wanted to say, and this is actually what I meant. So fintech is completely, now is the time, and the good part is uh, uh, our government is we have the best government we could have during this time. They are very positive about changes in our country, and they are coming forward with it. Everybody is participating, so we don't have a situation where people like you and us are in for fintech, and we have a government setup which is saying no, we are very cold shouldered to fintech. We are not going to talk about fintech. So we are in a very a good position today, because the government is talking about digital payments, and we as consumers, as professionals, we are also positive about using fintech. So I think the future is very, very good.
So, Swami, in your opinion, with your experience with BankBazaar, I mean, do you think it has? All the fintech sector has 100% positive impact because of COVID-19, or do you see that there are certain areas within the fintech domain which have been negatively impacted because of COVID-19?
I really wouldn't, I don't see any negative effect of COVID-19 on the fintech sector, largely because it thrives on digital adoption and everything is digital. And see, fintechs, even at say for companies like where I work for BankBazaar, so the constant, aim is to go and reach a position where it's, everything is completely paperless and presence-less. When I say presence-less, it means that when you do a transaction, it can be authenticated from anywhere you are sitting. You don't have to, physically come anywhere, and no, somebody doesn't have to do a face-to-face verification. So paperless, presence-less. So these are, some of the objectives that fintech companies are constantly, trying to achieve. So I think for COVID-19, as Antariksh rightly pointed out, having digital means was a great savior in this scenario. But one area where I see fintech has a good potential to grow is financial inclusion. It can play a very big role in getting financial inclusion in our country. So a large segment, of MSMEs, as you know, are underbanked, they're underserved, and banks typically don't like to finance MSMEs. But MSMEs contribute in a very large way in India's economy. So
Okay.
it contributes, yeah, I think it is about 24% it contributes in the services side, and about 33 or 34% on the manufacturing side. So MSMEs have a large role to play in the development of our economy. And because the traditional banks are kind of risk averse to finance these MSMEs and SMEs, even in the rural, even individuals. So I think fintech has an opportunity out there. And in COVID-19 scenario, it's all the more, probably something where fintech companies have an advantage. So I think there's a lot of potential on that sector as well. And as you can see, recent government policies like, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and
Mm-hmm.
even in our last union budget, a lot of policies have been enacted which are favoring the sector, and that is more relevant in a post-COVID scenario.
Thank you so much, Soumee. I think that leads me to the final section of our discussion is the road ahead. How it looks, the future looks like for fintech sector post COVID and maybe for years to come. So, as per you, Soumee, what could be the next disruptive innovation in this sector, which has not yet been tapped by the fintech companies?
Yeah, yeah. So I think technologies like IoT, AI, blockchain, machine learning, all this will kind of reinvent the whole transaction experience for users in terms of time and cost efficiency. Some of the areas where I see fintech businesses moving post 2020 will be, one would be the aggregator framework. So that is supposed to be launched in the latter half of this year. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
very major technology innovation on the lines of UPI. So what UPI was for payments, this is for lending. So this is an initiative by iSprit, which is a think tank of the software industry in the country. And major banks like SBI, HDFC, ICICI are partnering with iSprit to launch this account aggregator framework. So basically an app will be developed, which will be kind of run by the account aggregator, and a customer's financial history will be available to the lenders who are participating in that platform, so that, there is no need to kind of take collateral or, assets, physical assets from the customer. But the banks can look at a customer's financial history and decide and take a credit decision. For example, I am a salaried individual, and one can see my bank accounts, my past transactions, and the bank can decide whether to give me a personal loan or not. I don't need to provide a collateral as such. Similarly, for businesses, they can see the billing data, the GST data, and then decide that whether the bank should finance or not. So I think this is a path breaking revolution. There's a next big thing after UPI. Then I think one also needs to see how fintech helps in the insurance sector.
Okay.
So yeah, it will be interesting to see that how insurance will penetrate in the rural fronts. So life, non-life, micro insurers will need to be accessible with transparent pricing and alternate ways of expanding covers through digital channels. For example, I was just reading about something like a mosquito insurance that is that allows the insured to be protected against ailments caused by mosquito bites at a very affordable premium. So things like that, we already have web aggregators like Policy Bazaar and all, but I think these are the areas where maybe in future more work will be done. And the landscape of lending, digital lending is also changing. So we have P2P lending now and all, I think, and I see more developments on that. So yes, as I mentioned, these are the areas where we will be seeing traction in the future.
Very interesting. So that leads to me an offshoot of this question, which I may ask to Sanjiv and Antariksh both, is do you still see that India is following the disruptive innovation in US with regards to fintech, or do you think there are ways? I mean, we are evolving in a separate dimension with regards to fintech. Sanjiv.
Yeah. So, Himanshu, as far as fintech is concerned and the COVID situation is concerned, so there are two things. One is the focus for the fintech, also as to say the banking and finance company is to survive at this moment. Because
Okay.
what I understand that the NPA is going to be huge. Government has given moratorium. That's why the NPAs are not coming forward. And once NPA goes up, then it will be a difficult situation. Even as of today, situation is becoming difficult because the money, the scheduled payments are not coming forward. Okay, so it is taking time. So which is directly hampering the growth of the fintech companies. Now, what we have to see is whether there will be a V-shaped recovery or it will be a U-shaped recovery. Meaning thereby how long we have to see that how much time will it take to recover from this crisis. And next thing is that there is no reason that recovery will not happen. Or if I say I mean positively and with an optimistic approach, I would say that there is no reason that growth in India regarding fintech and finance companies will not happen. I do not find any reason. The growth is bound to happen.
Bound to happen.
Yes.
Antariksh, what's in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think every country has their individual challenges. So I would not say that we are blindfoldedly copying or trying to, follow in the footsteps of any other country, whether it's United States or any other country. But yes, since we have a very dynamic government in place today, fortunately, so we might take a page or two from their book, a good lesson or a doing which we should adopt to. But I think we have our own specific challenges, like Sanjiv sir mentioned, and we have our own population space, we have our own demography. So I think we will be pretty much going into the race with ourselves and moving forward slowly and steadily. And the laws would also be formed eventually, like I mentioned earlier, stringent laws would be also implemented according to our own understanding of the fintech companies and its usages. So I don't see India following or sort of, just photocopying what any other country is doing today, because they have their own challenges. They are developed in another sense. We have our own strengths. We have our own weaknesses. So everything will take time, but like sir and both of them mentioned, I don't see any doubts. I don't have any doubts about the fact that fintech will be doing great in the future. And I don't see anybody for that matter having any doubts about that. It's just a matter of time and a matter of new things coming up, which are actually coming up every day if you see. So I think we have a very positive future for fintech.
So one small comment what Antariksh has said, Antariksh, there are two things. One is the governance and another is over governance, regulation and over regulation. So similarly, we have to make a difference between two things. One is the existing legal system, and another is more stringent, what you have been aspiring for, the stringent. So nowadays, it is a time to decriminalize the corporate offenses. So, growth is also equally important. Sometimes we ignorantly do something wrong, and it does not mean that for anything wrong, there should be a criminal penalty attached to it.
I agree to you, sir, but for this, I would say that when it comes to money and businesses and a country's image globally, I see that every country should behave differently. And the more serious a country sounds in terms of laws for any money-making activities, I think that would be better for that country in the long run, because that so shows that they're serious about something, and no sort of gray areas are there in that country. So if a foreign investment is also is coming, they first need to know, okay, there are checks and bounds made in the country today. So like, for example, you had mentioned about the IT Act. There is an IT Act, but IT Act mentions about an appellate tribunal, which is there, which is already set up if there is any wrongdoing happening. But I went to that appellate tribunal last year, and there was nobody sitting in the office.
Yeah,
So,
implementation.
so I think implementation is there. I agree with you, but there is no effective implementation today because nobody is taking seriously that appellate tribunal. They're thinking who would come for a cyber crime today. But
Correct.
now that thought process has to change, that anybody can come even for a 10 rupee crime, and that 10 rupee crime should also be taken as seriously as a 10 lakh rupees crime. So that is when the change would come very drastically.
I think
Yeah,
you very well brought this point.
Be attached to it. The intention must be attached to it.
Yes, yes. And the good part is the government is in play. The government is actually in favor of what I said. They are not wary of this. They know this, that this is happening, and we have a very dynamic government. So I'm very happy about that fact.
So I think both of you have put in very valid points. So governance and over governance, regulation and over regulation. There is no thumb rule or a thin. There is a very thin line between regulation and over regulation. But at the same time, while we may have stringent laws, accountability in place, but if at all it is not implemented at the grassroots level, the whole, the whole thing is the objective is lost, the intention is lost. I mean, we may put strong laws against cyber crime, but if the cyber, theft office or maybe police are not educated enough or how to register a cyber crime, then the whole intention, where will the citizens go? They cannot go to the appellate tribunal by themselves. So I think that brings us to the end of this discussion, and it was really enriching. I would I would request Soumee ma'am to maybe put up a ending note to this discussion, if she may.
Yeah, so I think to summarize, I think fintech sector is booming, and it has been booming since the last decade. And now, in a post-COVID scenario, it's all the more relevant today for the sector to flourish and to kind of reach and also kind of address the problems of financial inclusion, address the problems of data security, data privacy. So I think yes, a lot of work has been done till now on the part of the regulator, the government, and we've seen a lot of traction till date. But I think there's still a long way to go, and definitely the sector is going to get into a boom in the future.
Thank you so much, Soumee ma'am, Sanjiv, and Antariksh. It was really insightful discussion. And I really hope to see you again in some other topic with maybe different panelists or the same panelists, of course. And over to you, Chandrika.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules, everyone, and being a part of this healthy discussion. Also, it was indeed a very good learning experience for all of us. Last but not the least, I would like to thank Lloyd for launching this wonderful and organizing this new series of #F2F Lloyd. Thank you, Himanshu sir. Thank you, panelists.